What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent and welcome to another video. Today I'm jumping back into some reviews, but we're going to do it in a sit down style. We're going to chill out. Not going to worry about crazy editing, none of that shit. Today we're just going to sit down and we're just going to talk about figures. I'm going to review a figure, of course, but we're going to try it out this way and see if it works out, see how much, less stress may be involved. But first, I want to talk about this guy that we're looking at right here, this Peely figure. Got him for 20 bucks at Target a couple weeks ago or a week ago, something like that. And there's another one coming that's going to have a suit, like the spy version of Peely. He's going to have a suit on. This is a Fortnite figure for those of you who don't know. And it's pretty dope. The reason why I'm pointing this out, I didn't get it for me. This is Little Strydent's figure. And there's just something about this line. Like, I hate the game. I'm not even gonna lie. Fortnite as a game is just boring and whack to me. It's just not enough for me. But as a franchise, you see that the designs borrow from like everything. And this takes me back to the old days when you would go to the dollar store or you would go to like KB Toys or something like that as a kid, and you would just see some random shit out there and you'd be like, damn, this looks cool, or this looks funny, or I want to play with that, and you get it and then you play with it and it's just so much fun, and you figure out a way to incorporate it into your universe. Like a lot of Ninja Turtle toys were like that for me. That's how I got into Ninja Turtles. It's just so random and weird. And I had to get certain types of characters. There was a portion of the Turtles vintage collection that was too much for me when I was a kid, where it was like, this is just too grimy, or this character's got too much crap on him. I wasn't interested. But there were those characters out there like Ace Duck or like Panda Con, or Ground Chuck, that they just hit the sweet spot where you're like, yeah, that works for me. That's weird, but it's just interesting enough that it's fun. And Peely definitely gives off that vibe. This version, we have the smaller versions of him too. He's become a favorite with my boys, both the older one who loves goofy shit and the younger one who's pretty goofy, but he's a little bit more like me. He likes most of the like somewhat more hardcore stuff. He's not into edgy stuff. He just likes heroes that can handle their business, and he started to like Peely over the years, and this figure, it kind of encapsulates that fun, that just pure, just anything goes kind of fun that we used to have with our figures when we were kids, not biting, not trying to do it because someone else did it. I just mean 100%, you're a kid, you see it and you're like, huh, I like that. Kind of like with, and I'm going to switch them out and show you. Kind of like with old, my chair fell down. Apparently I had too many things on the chair. I didn't think I did, but anyway, it's kind of like what used to be the case when it came to our good friend Todd McFarlane and McFarlane Toys. Remember those? These were the, what were they called? Nitro Riders. Look how crazy this shit looks. And I remember seeing it in KB when I was in college, actually. That's when these came out. My freshman year in college, I want to say. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And I just couldn't help but like be amazed because, just look at it. Look at it. Look at all the freaking exhausts in the back. What the fuck? Like, are you serious? That just looks like it could do all kinds of damage. And all the spikes and stuff. He loves his spikes and shit, But it was just really cool, It was really interesting and really like just completely just blow your mind. Like, what? Like, what the fuck? I don't understand what the hell I just saw. It's like it gets your mind going in that area where it's just all imagination, anything is possible, you know what I mean? And I miss that. So Yeah, Fortnite seems to be hitting that sweet spot, and seems like it's gonna do gangbusters as a toy line, and it already has been. Um, just like it's doing as a game, aimed at younger players. So, props to them for figuring out that, and props to the designers, the character designers, who are finally getting their work is getting the attention that it deserves. Because I mean, Jesus, that shit is top tier, top tier, top tier. It's great work. They deserve to get that attention, and it's nice to see people's work get the attention it deserves. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to video games, because video games is one of those thankless jobs. A lot of folks don't see it, but imagine you create something. It's played for hours and hours. People are staring at your work for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours for a while. And then all of a sudden, like, there's an off switch. It's like, bloop, now nobody's looking at that shit. It's weird. And that's how games are. That's why I like to try and appreciate as much of the process, as much of what is offered as possible. Music, sound effects, character designs, level design, all of it, as much as I can. But anyway, enough of that. We are going to finally sit down and talk about this guy back here. I've been telling you guys, I was so geeked to do like a big video and all this stuff. And then the last video was kind of like, meh. I did my little cinematic intro and stuff. And everybody just, people read it or watched it. But, it didn't quite get what I was expecting. So I figured, you know what? Let's go simple this time. So today we are going to take a look at the Mezco Supreme Knight. Now, this is a figure that I had been waiting for quite some time. It's a design that has always spoken to me when other people draw it, not necessarily Frank Miller. Unlike a lot of people, I have several bones to pick with Frank Miller. I don't like a lot of his storytelling. I don't like a lot of his design choices. I don't think that he makes the best, he writes the best versions of like Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, Wonder Woman, just about anybody. I'm not really feeling his versions of those characters. I think he still writes with a very kind of, I don't want to say juvenile, but just a very strange idea of what these characters are about and what they do and why they do what they do. And he wants to alter the very nature of the character in order to get to the place where his story can work. And those are the stories that bug me, when there's like these giant lapses and or leaps in logic in order to have the events in the story, like Kara Andrews' Spider-Man, is it the end? The one where he's like old and he's an old man Spidey, and supposedly Mary Jane died because there was radiation in his semen. I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. Like, you really, really went there so you could have that one moment? Like, seriously? Like, it's the things that, like, there's a reason why there are comic book artists and there are comic book writers. But anyway, I've already jumped on too long about that. Let's get into this guy. So, this is Supreme Knight. It's a dope figure. You already know most of what I'm going to say because I have been saying these things since I started collecting Mezco figures. I always admired the figures. I started with the first Mezco 112 collective figure, which was the Dark Knight Returns Batman. And I just continued getting Batman figures all the way from, what did I start with? I went back and I got the Ascending Knight, which I love this figure. I think this figure is probably my favorite of the bunch. I played with him the most because I just couldn't believe how they hit the Bill Finger design so hard. He just looks the part, and I was like, God, like, how did you pull that off? And then I think I did it the other way around. I got the Sovereign Knight first, then I went back and I got the Ascending Knight, because I was like, yeah, I need that in my life. Gotta have that. So it's been a big thing with Batman, and I'm a Batman fan. I have that curse that a lot of us have, and I've had it. Batman was the first superhero I ever got into as a kid, so I always get stuck focusing on Batman figures in some way, shape, or form. You know, I've got a bunch of Batman figures I still got to review because I dipped into the McFarlane stuff and I managed to pick up. I replaced my Arkham Knight Batman with the McFarlane Arkham Knight, and I'm not sad. It's leaps and bounds better than the DC collectibles one. And I picked up, I happened across the Thomas Wayne Batman from Flashpoint. So I had to get that one because, you know, that wasn't even something that was on my radar at first, but I was like, just looking at the figure, there's something about those figures that, you know, it's showing a level of care that just, we didn't get that with DCUC previously. We thought we did, but we really didn't. I mean, I'll say DCUC are better engineered figures in some ways. Like, I should say more tightly engineered figures. Like, you don't have some of the issues you have with the McFarlane stuff with the DCUC, but that is a review for another day. But it just is kind of strange to see the evolution, you know, for me at least. My collection kind of went from this guy, this was the Zipline Batman, to this Batman Unlimited Batman. It's a release of the, actually it's a retool because he has a different, I think I customized that head. Yeah, I did, because he had the gritting, you know, I'm taking a dump, head, and I got rid of that head, put it on the Thrasher suit body, and yeah, used this. But this is a retooling of the S3 Sculpt black and gray Batman. This is Mattel and Mattel. Then I got to Mezco, and then, you know, we kept going. And I mean, there's other Batman figures that I had in between, but, you know, it's just kind of dope to see that whole evolution, you know, and understand, like, this is how collecting works, you know. You start trading out some of the stuff for, you know, for better once better comes along. And sometimes that takes a while. You don't initially see better, you know what I mean, right away. You get better over time, you know, and that's where we're at right now. I'm going to leave these other Batman in the background just so that we can, you know, have a Batman related, all Batman all the time background. And, yeah, we can do it that way. But, Homeboy's really cool. There's a lot to his design. For those of you who don't know, he is wearing essentially a customized version, a gray version of the Special Ops Punisher's costume. I've watched videos where people tried to argue this point, but I'll put a side-by-side picture so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, obviously, you know, boots and knee pads and gloves and shit are different, but you can, if you look up close, which we can jump up real quick on his arms and his chest and stuff, you can see that weird leathery material. And the Punisher had it going on up here on his shoulders, exact same detail. And he also had the bicep, you know, covering right here. Move it closer so you can just see that, as well as the stuff going on the abdomen. Now, what's weird is when I first saw pictures of all this, I thought that the part that's like a bulletproof vest around his chest was going to be hard, like a harder plastic, and then it would be soft, or, you know, there'd be nothing right here. Because if you look at it, it's like it's a vest that's part of the suit. So you have a front and you have a back. And I was expecting that to be the case, so that like at the waist, there was nothing. So you would still have ab, you know, movement and whatnot. But that's not what they did. It's just a rubbery material in here. And you have it all through his legs as well. You know, you got some of the little plate armor on his sides. And you've got it on, like, wrapped around, like the strap on there. It's almost like the Batfleck armored suit from Justice League. Just lighter, you know what I mean? But, you know, since they were all kind of digging from the same well, because, you know, or drinking from the same well, there's some of those aesthetics here, because they're all Dark Knight Returns aesthetics with the tiny ears and all that stuff. I love this cowl with all the armor on the inside of it, or on the outside of it, actually. It's dope. and the rest of the cowl, like on the neck of the cowl. Look at all that detailing and shit. Like, God, man. They really did the damn thing with this guy. So yeah, it's an amazing figure, even if it is reused parts from other figures. And that part stresses me out because, you know, $80 a pop, you should never be reusing parts. You should be giving us brand new figures every time, brand new sculpts, brand new parts, so that, you know, we truly have something unique on our shelves. But that will bring me into where I have my gripes with Mezco, and I'm going to do that in a little bit. Right now, I just want to continue to talk about the details on this guy. I love these gauntlets. I mean, just look at how heavy that shit looks. It looks like this is Batman getting ready to, like, wage war, you know? Look at that. Very good. I mean, look at those knuckle dusters, you know? Sheesh. Batman is not playing. You can even see, like, the little button right there that he would press to, like, activate whatever, maybe his comms or something like that. I always imagine he either has a holographic comm on his wrist, because this is Batman in the future. I mean, he's old, but it's the future. And then he would also have, like, the comm link set up in his ear, you know, on the helmet. So, yeah, I always imagine him like, you know, Oracle. Actually, it wouldn't be Oracle. Alfred. It's crazy that Alfred's still alive in this time, was still alive in the time period. You know what I mean? Like, Alfred's like 200 years old and shit. But anyway, the design is just dope. I also really love, and, you know, some people have pointed this out, and I shouldn't be saying I love, I should be saying, let's look at the detail. We have to give them props for the amount of detail that went into this new symbol on his chest that they, ever since, have kind of bastardized with all the releases that they've done since then. I mean, there's so many versions of this figure. I stick with the black and gray because that, next to Keaton Bats being all black, black and gray is my shit. Ever since I first saw Batman Animated Series display that in movement, I was like, that's it. That's the way it's going to be in my collection. And that's why Zipline Batman was my Batman for so long, because it just had what I was looking for. But I love the scratches, the bullet holes or bullet impact marks. You see them? It's just, it's dope because, you know, before they said the yellow was to draw attention to the chest so the bad guys would want to shoot there, and that's where he's got the heaviest armor. But then when you think about it now, if he goes darker, if it's shiny, it's going to be, you know, an area of attention. And, you know, your bad guys are going to attack there first, too. His belt, the utility belt. I love this thing. Look at how chunky and big and just powerful. It looks like this thing can take, you could beat the shit out of someone with this belt. But it also looks like there's things in the belt that would allow him to keep what's locked in there until he's ready to release it. You know what I mean? Like, his weapons in here are secure. You can also tell that the pockets are old. They're worn. He's used this suit. You know what I mean? You see scratches and all that stuff. You see, I like the two-toned or the glossy and matte finish. That looks really good. You can tell what's like metal or, you know, maybe a hard kind of like Kevlar, and then what's more of like a mesh on the sides of the pockets, and then that smooth canvas kind of front. Belt, you can tell, is metal. And then another piece that I love that I have to get back into when we talk about accessories, but I'll show it off here first, is the Bat grapnel gun, and the fact that it has a little place to store it, a little holster. All of these Batman have it, and I've always been saying, like, there's certain things that Batman toys should always have. Here's a look at the back of his armor, and that's another thing that he should always have is, oh, look at the back of these boots. Jesus, man. Jesus, man. Show you the front as well. It's just it's just on a different level, you know? The thought that went into this, it's like, what would this look like if it was a movie and they were trying to improve on it? Kind of like how they used to do in the 80s and 90s, whenever they did adaptations of like cartoons or something like that, they would always go the extra mile in the design department, and whoever did the costume work would think about how these things would work in real life. I mean, Batman 89 is a perfect example. You know, how would it work? Would he be wearing combat boots? Would he be wearing sneakers? What would be the best fit for someone running around and jumping and shit, you know, in the middle of the city? And they gave him freaking sneakers with like covering over them to make them more I don't know, like friendly for the type of environment that he's going to be in, you know, more appropriate for that environment. So I dig that. I'm really happy with the look of this guy. So let's jump on to accessories. All right, so here are the accessories. This is everything except for his grapnel gun that is actually in his belt right now. I will take that out eventually to show you a little bit more about that, because there are parts that work with it. But you have a ton of accessories. Again, these are the things that I love about Mezco. This is why I used to hold them in high regard. I still will say, no matter what their business practices are, the Mezco Batman figures are some of the finest Batman figures, some of the finest figures you're ever going to see. They give you everything. I mean, there's not really much to ask for from these figures, because I mean, everything is on display here. My gripes are in some of how some of these things work, and I have one major gripe with this figure, because I was curious to see how this was going to work, but I wasn't really hoping that they were going to go through with it, you know, because it seems like with this Batman and with 89 that's on its way, they're trying new things, and I can't fault them for that. But with Batman, if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. He doesn't need some fancy gimmick. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Maybe as a designer, it gets boring. But, like, you just want a Batman that's tough, you know? That you can put him in situations, make him fight your other villains, you know? Or you can do a lot of posing and a lot of photography with him, and he stands up to all of it, you know? That's what you want. That's what I want. So getting a Batman that's going to be, you know, seamless and rubbery, I don't know that I'm going to love that. And that's what they're planning for Batman 89, and I'm not necessarily happy about that. But yeah, these here are the accessories. You see, I hate that. Sometimes when I'm doing these, it'll like cut off my I pause for a little bit, and if I plug in the the charger or whatever, it'll just create a whole nother file, and I'm like, I was trying to do it all at once. But anyway, so you've got the multiple heads here, you've got the gritting teeth, I'm pissed off head. It looks good. You can tell he's old. He kind of reminds me of Peter Weller. Peter Weller was the voice of Batman in The Dark Knight Returns parts 1 and 2. And for those of us nerds who know Peter Weller, he was RoboCop in RoboCop 1 and 2, which are the only two that matter. 1 for most of us, you know. And here's his unmasked head. I like it. I like it a lot. And I'm going to do a little comparison real quick so you can see him age, because that's something I never thought I would see, and I'm big on legacy, so having them do it correctly is awesome. But the one thing I don't like is this weird like flat top-ish kind of thing. I mean, the cut matches the cuts from other Batman figures, and he looks damn good for an old man, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't look bad at all. Let me get up close so you can see a little bit more. That does not look bad at all. Maybe it's too much light. There we go. It works though. Kind of reminds me of Stephen Lang. He played Miles Quaritch in Avatar. That was the evil military dude. And he was in that movie Don't Breathe, I think it was called. He was the weird blind guy. Okay, so here's my comparison. Look at how mean he looks, man. How calculating. It's crazy. but you can kind of see what's going on. Like this one right here has the temples that are slightly gray, whereas this one is all crisp and clean and new. And then here he's got white hair because the stress has gotten to him, but it hasn't slowed him down. And yeah, it's nice to see this because you don't have this with other characters, you know? I want this with like Cap, or I want this with even Green Arrow, or with characters like the Ninja Turtles. I want them as they get older. Other heroes like, you know, in Street Fighter, I'd love Ryu as he gets older. You know, we've got Akuma, but I'd love Ryu as he's older. I'd love an older He-Man, you know? And I know they made them, but, you know, some of that stuff is just not widely available like these guys are. So, and it's weird because these are more expensive, but it's easy to get a hold of these as opposed to some of that other stuff. But anyway, just for the comparison's sake, you have, you know, Batman through the ages, and it's kind of weird, you know, he's got this weird kind of, it's like, it's not quite Ben Affleck, it's not quite Gerard Butler, it's like it's a mixture of a bunch of people, like that little cut thing going on his chin. You see that? It's like, I don't know, man. It looks good though. And just the subtle aging that they did. Like the difference between these two here is just wonderful. When I first saw that, I was like, yep, I gotta have it. Because, I mean, I've been collecting Batman figures for so long and he just looks young. And I've always been like, you know, of all the heroes that should, you know, we should have a representation of them throughout time, throughout their career. Batman needs to be one of them. So this was a must get for me because of that alone. You know, I'm getting older. You know, I'm human. Batman's human. It's what we all like about Batman. You know, it's what a lot of people will kind of fall back on. Batman's the only one who don't got powers. I like Batman because he don't have powers. And it's like, okay, yeah, he doesn't have powers. And yeah, yet you want him to be immortal, essentially. No one else can wear the cape or the cowl. You know what I mean? No changes, no legacy, nothing. So, I don't know. For me, this is perfect because I am huge on the idea of legacy, especially when it comes to our superheroes, because, I mean, that's the point. They're going to be here for a certain amount of time, and then, you know, they've got to pass the torch, because a lot of them can't do this forever, you know? If they could do it forever, then there should be a sizable impact left on the world due to their, you know, their work. You know, Batman should have rid Gotham of most of its crime by now, but as you can see, if you keep reading the stories, he's just not really making a mark, you know, not the way that he probably intended. So, yeah, it's nice to see legacy on display. So where was I? Heads. The heads are pretty nice. You've got two different Batarangs. I imagine that this is the remote control Batarang from Batman Returns because it looks like and feels like the remote control Batarang from Batman Returns. It's the same on both sides. It's a pretty nice design. It's got some scratches and cracks on it, so you can tell he's bopped people on the head with this thing a couple times. I really dig these sharp edges, you know, the grips and the sharp edges and stuff. That's pretty nice. And they are sharp, so be careful. It's not terribly sharp, but it's pretty sharp. And this is the Bat Karambit. Now, Karambit doesn't look like this. It's small. It usually has a little ring that goes around your finger, and then it's just the hook. It's usually one of these. So, like, there's a way you can kind of get it to be like that right here. But on the toy, this thing is huge. I mean, like, I'll put it in his hand and show you, so you can get an idea for what I'm talking about. And I was just like, yeah, no. This is never going to be in my Batman's arsenal. I mean, number one, where the hell is he carrying this shit? It's fucking huge. But there it is. And that's the way he would be carrying it. That's like Batman carrying a shank. And I'm not really feeling that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's something I'll warm up to it later, but I think that's just too much. I mean, maybe if the story is supposed to call for him being terribly brutal, you know, stabbing folks half to death and shit, then maybe I could see that. Yeah, maybe I take that back. I'll figure out a scenario, work up some choreography, and have him use this fighting off, you know, somebody. Not Deathstroke. Deathstroke would kill old man Batman. I don't care what any of you guys say. People forget how powerful Deathstroke actually is and how powerful he's supposed to be. And over the years, it's like folks forgot that he's pretty much DC's Captain America, but if he was evil. And somehow they keep leaving out the very important parts about, you know, this man having a healing factor, this man being so much faster and stronger than a peak human, you know, athlete or, you know, fighter or whatever. It's like he's that and then some. And then you keep making him get bitched out by Batman every time in these games and stuff. I'm like, stop. That's why he was such a pain for Robin back in the day in Teen Titans, because actually for the Titans in general, because he was so far above your regular person. He was like harder than Batman, you know? And I don't know, the fact that people forgot that, and it's convenient because, hey, Batman gets to win. It's like, oh, stop. I like when Batman wins, but I like when it's a hard fought victory. You know what I mean? He earned the victory. He fought hard. He outsmarted. In some cases he cheated, but you know, he earned the victory. Let's see. Oh, the grapnel. So a cool part about this is that the belt has this cool holster piece right here. In the past, it was just a clip system, and I'll show you so you get to see it. It was like two clips that just clamp in and hold the grapnel gun in place. And in some cases, it was okay. I had to find ways to make it, you know, clip on tighter. Like in this one, I put a rubber band going around the two clamps, and it makes it clamp a little bit tighter so that I don't have to worry about it not holding. And as you can see, I put that in wrong. Good job, Strydent. Trying to prove a point and you just fucked up right on camera. I put it in backwards, so my bad. Put it in all the way. See? It's not falling out. So you have that clip system. Same thing with the Sovereign Knight. He's got the clip system, but the gun is a little bit thicker, so it doesn't need as much help. So, and you notice too is that it went from a boxy, almost pistol looking thing to an actual tool. And then here it looks like a futuristic tool, you know, almost like a futuristic staple gun sort of deal. And I like that. You know, you're seeing a evolution of Batman's design sensibilities when it comes to his tech, which is one of the issues I've had with a lot of the film versions. There's the holster by itself. It's like they keep moving farther and farther away from the fact that this is a guy who has tons of money and customizes his own gear for the express purpose of being Batman. So everything is like unorthodox, you know? But anyway, here is the grapnel gun. Pretty nice. You can tell like the line is stuck in here. Mechanisms that shoot it out. You can shoot probably more than one. Probably a spear out of there and the actual grapnel out of the top. Cool thing is you get a lot of choice. You can put the grapnel itself in the front. It's pretty nice. You can't put anything in the bottom, I don't think. Yeah, you can't put anything in the bottom hole. That's what she said. Anyway, here it is splayed out. So you could like do a quick cut from it being closed to him like pop that in there and then pull the trigger and it click, it opens up. I love that. It looks so good. And then, of course, you have the splayed open one with the line and this rope. Like you can see I didn't take mine out. This rope connects to it and you can just pop that little peg piece into that hole and it does its job. That way you can do those shots where it's like the rope is connected to the grapnel gun and it's coming off the edge of the screen sort of thing, like he's grapneled onto part of a building or something. And that's pretty dope. You've got a ton of batarangs, 10 in total. Who else gives you 10 batarangs? I mean, I've got batarangs like this for each of my different Batman figures. And I haven't even opened most of them. I think actually the first one came with just a small handful, and I don't feel like looking for that. Hold on. Yeah, I opened the the batarangs for the Ascending Knight. You can kind of see them in here if you look closely towards the bottom. See them all right there? I think he had 10 of those as well. Then I got 10 of the, Sovereign Knight. And then we got 10 of these as well. And they're chunky. These look like they would hurt. You know, they could kind of bludgeon you, but they are sharp on the edges and they would, stab into things like Shuriken are supposed to. So that's pretty dope. Then you have this bunch of them that you can hold together like this. I think that's dope. And it's perfect for this pair of hands or set of this hand where you can just put them in his hand like so. So that's dope. Then, of course, you've got a ton of hands, a metric ton of hands. You always have a metric fuck ton of hands because your Batman figure has to emote and he has to do different things. A cool thing is he has this thing, and they call this the equalizer cannon. Come on. Let us see the equalizer. There we go. This thing looks crazy. It reminds me of the thing that Blue Beetle has. He has a similar kind of gimmick where he has this gun that does it's like an all-purpose gun that does all kinds of stuff. I don't imagine this thing shooting bullets or anything. And I've seen pictures where people had Batman firing a gun like this is some kind of shotgun with like the big blast coming out the front, like he just murked somebody up close. And nah, this thing would shoot probably like sound, disorient the hell out of people, or it's like an EMP weapon that would just neutralize your weapons, But it looks great. And he has hands to hold it, complete with a trigger finger, which I was surprised, but it makes sense. You can also use the trigger holding hand for the grapnel gun. I'll show it to you from the other side so you can see that he actually hits the trigger. See that? It's pretty dope. So when shit's getting real, Batman pulls out the freaking boomstick and goes to work. So that works for me. You've got your standard holding things hands. I'm showing you just one of each because there's no need to go into both. They're identical. You've got one with an extra tight grip. And I have a feeling that this is for the Karambit. That's what I used before. And also, it has spaces in between the fingers. If you look closely, see that? So you could put batarangs in between these fingers for this one. And I like that. Look at the subtle, gloss finish on those knuckle pieces on his fingers. That's nice. See, when I spend $80 on a figure, that's what I want to see, That kind of tiny little painstaking detail. Man, I can't wait to review Magneto. I got Magneto for Christmas and I was so geeked. My freaking in-laws got him for me. I'm like, you got me what? Because they normally don't listen. And then yeah, I'm so geeked. Shit, just wait. You just wait. And then so to go with the gun hand, you have like the resting hand to hold on to the equalizer cannon. So you understand what that looks like, right? So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, he has his splayed open action hands. These are perfect for all those flourishes and jumping and, floating around and stuff. When he does like a perfect 10 dive off of the top of a skyscraper, You got those hands for that. And that is it. That is it. I think this actually is a hand for the grapnel gun as well. It's like the relaxed trigger finger hand, you know? So he's not quite holding on to the trigger, but you can tell it's for holding that kind of weapon. And that's really it with that. Now we have, of course, the bag to put everything in that people seem to don't understand what to do with, because you hear so much like just confusion and dislike and disdain for the bag. And I'm like, the bag is nice because, you know, like Figma, and it looks identical to a Figma bag. You have somewhere to put all of this. And, you know, usually if you keep it together like I do, I have a box specifically for my 112 Collective accessories. I just put these stands at the bottom and I put the bags on top of them. It works, you know. I have another one with all my Figma stuff, and I've got a lot of Figmas, and it works. I don't have any issues with that. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the confusion or frustration or whatever is. I think it's people complaining just because they can. But this thing comes in handy. The next piece. This Batman has a gimmick. This is the wired cape that comes with him. God, mine is so dusty. Let me get some of that off. It's made of a slightly thicker, you know, pleather that's similar to the pleather that's on the actual the cape that he's wearing, you know, the figure. So as you can see, they're identical as far as the materials go. It's just this is wired. Now, the gimmick is the part that, you know, bothered me with this toy, and I was like almost not going to get it, and I was afraid I wasn't going to like it, but so far so good. He is held his cowl, the head and the cowl can be removed because there's a magnet inside holding it in. And you know, Strydent hates magnets on his toys. Fucking blows. I never like them because they don't last. I remember I had a custom made for me by the awesome Happy Day Customs, Chris at Happy Day Customs, and he customized my Wolverine for me. He gave him fists, closed fists without the claws, you know, sticking out, and then he gave me them with metal claws in them because I bought these thick, I think they call them sailor pins or something like that. They're for sewing, you know, the sails on a boat, and so they look like Wolverine's claws, but they're not sharp. You know what I mean? So I don't have to worry about my son happening across Metal Claw Wolverine going, oh my God, metal claws, and then scratch, he's got a piece of metal stuck in his hand or some shit. You know what I mean? Or it falling off the shelf and stabbing me in the foot. But anyway, for about a year, the magnets, the rare earth magnets, I think is what they're called. And it was perfect for about a year. And then beginning of the next year, one day I came back from work, both hands were just bloop on the floor. And I'm like, So I tried to, you know, recharge them. Same thing. A few months later, it's like over time they got weaker. So I was like, yeah, no. And, you know, with my 12-inch figures, I used to have that issue where things using magnets, you know, would always fall off and then they would lose their power, and I just don't feel like being bothered with that shit. But anyway, with this, the magnet's pretty strong because it's holding on right now, right? And then if you pull a little bit harder, it comes off. You can see the magnet in there, and then you can see the magnet or the metal piece right there inside the neck. Now there's this cool ring around here where the cape is sewn into to keep it all doing what it does. And then you can see kind of how that works because it keeps the cape draping where it needs to drape. And, oh, it's like that on that side too. So yeah, you just pull that off. I always leave this on the, on my stand. Oh my God, stop being difficult. And, yeah, now you can apply. And you have to be careful how you do it too, because there's the wire in the front goes all the way through the cape. So you want to make sure that that is in the front of the little magnet piece, and then clip it in and then pop the head back on like so. with my knee. Sometimes if you don't do it right, you end up with a big gap in the front, and that's what I'm ending up with right now. So give me a second while I situate this so that I don't have that stupid gap. And this is part of what I didn't like about having this gimmick. You know me, I hate gimmicks, and this is as gimmicky as it gets. You know, why couldn't you just make the cape, have a wire in it, and then give us a way to pop it on and then pop it off? But for the sake of the review, I'm going to leave it like this. If you look closely, you can see there's a gap. You see how it's not quite flush? And that has to do with the way I put it on. I did a rush job, so it's not perfect, but it's close. But you have Batman with his cape. And now the cape can do stuff. You can have the wind blowing. And it's cool too because there's each of the spines. Well, I shouldn't say each of them. There's about 4, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 altogether, right? Yeah, 5 altogether. So you can have him assume the pose that you want him to assume, and shit looks pretty good. Doesn't look cheesy. And the cape is so much cape that it's so easy to, you know, look at all that. I can even curl it a little more like that. It looks so good. So yeah, this kind of brought me around to the to the wired capes, because at first I was like, nah, I don't want to do wired capes. I'm not a fan of wired capes. I don't like it. No like it. Me no like. But then, you know, the more I played around with it, and you saw it in the Sovereign Night video, I was able to get some poses that, like, with the cape, you know, him having the cape flared out, just completely covering up all the space, you know, and it looked so good. I was like, holy shit, I think I'm going to get into this more, and I'm going to buy a couple more, probably more expensive capes just to see how it does. And I'm also going to experiment with my own because, you know, I make capes. And strangely enough, the only type of cape I haven't done is a wired cape. So it's about time for me to start trying that. But it looks good, man. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised because I expected it to not work, and it worked perfectly. So, you know, props to them for that. There's nothing really to, you know, nothing more to ask for from this. I dig it a lot. I really didn't think I was going to like it, and I really, 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 really dig it. So, you know, like I said, props to them for that. Now, one of the cool things too is that the wire in the front part right here is thick, so it will hold just about any pose, whereas the wire that's in these smaller spines on the back, and I know that doesn't look as amazing as it should because I just kind of quickly put that pose together. But if you straighten it out, it's a little easier to tell. Those are thinner. What I don't like though is that the wire that's in these smaller ones doesn't connect to the ring that the rest of the cape is connected to. So it doesn't, like, you see how the bigger spines or the bigger wire actually connects up front, so it holds better. This doesn't hold as well. So in some cases, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to get that to work the way you want it to. In other cases, it'll work the way you want it to. So it all depends on what you're going for. Just know that going into it. And I know a lot of people skipped this version and got like one of the other versions. So I'm sure you're going to have varying degrees of either it working better or it working worse from those other versions, you know, because they usually fix any issues that pop up with these figures as they do the different variations. Usually, I'm not saying it's a rule. Mezco is kind of greedy. That's why they have so many exclusive versions that are just color swaps, you know, in the first place, because you can make a shitload of money on the same exact toy. You just color everything differently. And, you know, clearly they have the means to do so. So they do so. But you can see that the cape looks amazing. You know what I mean? That shit looks alive. It looks alive. And it's weird because a lot of people, I've watched a lot of videos where people were reviewing it, and you know, they didn't quite capture the majesty of this cape. I mean, and then like I'm gonna put him in like a jumping pose, and I'm gonna show you that. You know me, I prefer the standard cape. All my figures, even my customs, my custom capes are all just drape capes. But this is definitely, along with the Superman from DC Collectibles, the movie Superman, you know what I'm talking about? What do they call the DC Films Superman? Along with that one, they have totally gotten me to dig, you know, wired capes. I feel like there's another dimension of, like, you know, of life that your cape gets with those characters, like Spawn. If there was a Spawn figure with a crazy wired cape, which I've seen a couple on eBay, a couple like sellers that do those crazy ass wired capes, and Spawn with a wired cape would be fucking nuts, you know, as long as it's done right, you know. So with this, I'm pretty impressed with how everything looks. Check this out. Let's look. Look at that. It's like that Alex Ross image where he's reaching at the Joker. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a top down just like this. Joker's over here, Harley is in here, and like they're all like trying to grab Batman all at the same time. Pretty dope. But I mean, like, look at that. Looks great. Let me get lower so you can see more of it. Look at that. There we go. I mean, that's quality right there. Look at that. I mean, ignore the arm holding him up, but I mean, that looks right. It looks so right. Gives him that dimensionality that he needs, you know? So yeah, I'm digging that, and I think that many of you will dig it too if you haven't already picked him up. The one gripe that I have, like I said, is that I wasn't sure about the magnets, and I don't like gimmicks, so I don't need that on my Batman figures. Usually the Batman figure's construction speaks for itself, and it lets him do what he needs to do, and that's all I'm interested in. But I don't know. They've pulled off some cool things here. And because he's old, I don't mind that he's a little bit shorter than the other two. And in general, he's a little short compared to like a lot of other figures. So I'm not really, that doesn't really bother me. Let's see something. Let's recreate the cover of the famous shot from the comic and the movie. I just keep doing a little bit more fancy nanciness. And I apologize for the dead air, you know. The master levels posing in progress. Gotta have those moments so I can show you guys what's cooking in my mind. But let's do it that, and then put him up on this like so. With his leg. There we go. Look at that. We just need the thunder crack right behind him, and it is all a wrap. Look at that shit. Look at the dynamism in that shit. I mean, like, this is what I'm getting this stuff for. You know, I'll show you him from the front so you can see what I did with his other leg. That looks more natural than that weird pose he was in in general. I never liked that pose fully because I always felt like something was lacking, you know? Like it didn't feel natural for him to jump off a building and then, you know, I mean, I know it's a comic, so, you know, I'm thinking too hard as an artist myself, but this feels a little bit more natural. And I've seen other people do it too, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are too busy doing exactly what's in the comics. You got to use your own imagination, bring your little something to it, you know? So there's mine. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. So anyway, I am going to... Do I need to compare him? I think I've given you a ton of comparisons to other Batman figures. You know what I'll do? I'll compare him to a Joker. I'll get out a Joker, and I will get out a Penguin, probably Arkham City Penguin, and yeah, I'll be right back. Ra's al Ghul. I'll be right back. This is the Mattel Carrie Kelly. I mean, it looks kind of weird because she doesn't have the level of like detailing that he has, and I refuse to believe that if he looked like this, Robin would look like this. So Mezco needs to hurry up and give us a couple Robins, because it's strange. They've skimped on Robin and Batgirl and Nightwing. You know, I've seen so many customs of those guys. It's like, what are you doing? I want to see a badass Carrie Kelly Robin, you know, or a badass Robin to go with this Batman, or, you know, the way that I usually would have played. There's no Robin at this point. That's why he's so hardcore. But I get it. Carrie Kelly is there to ground our Batman. So anyway, you know, just a comparison though, so you could see them together. I think they look cool. I definitely would say though, and I know this isn't the review for that, but since I brought her out, I have these two displayed together, and it's perfect. And I've heard people say things like, you know, because this is cloth, you can't have them with this, but the sculpt is the kind of sculpt where it gives you the impression that she's wearing a cloth, you know, suit, and it looks good. So I think that works. You know what I mean? I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's poorly done. I don't think it looks wrong. I don't think there's anything with that look that's lacking. It's capturing the look of the characters from the comics as they appeared in the comics, and I don't have any problems with that. So props there. That's an option. Keep it in mind. Okay, size comparison with some of the villains, and you can see Batman sizes up perfectly with them. He's not the tallest. He's a little shorter than Ra's and Harvey, which is fine with me. I don't know why everybody thinks that Batman always has to be the tallest guy in the room. It's like, come on, guys, like, get off of that shit. He's taller than Catwoman, which works. I wouldn't even mind if the two of them were like the same size, but I know when you see them in, you know, media, she's always looking up at him, you know, traditional boy-girl type thing. So that's fine. It works. I got some more for you. Here he is with Gordon and Soups. I think they look fine. I don't care that Gordon is tall and Batman is a little bit on the, just a tiny bit shorter. I don't mind that shit. I mean, actually, they're about the same height. It's perfectly fine. Oh, nah, his shoulders are higher. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference. He's old Batman, you know? And then Superman is bigger. That's fine. Superman's not going to age, so he's going to stay upright and looking, you know, like he just stepped out of an old photo because he's Superman. I mean, that's the point, you know? So we got one more just for me because, you know, like I said, I have a history with all these characters because this is what I was doing with my time as a kid growing up, you know? Batman and Bulletproof. When I was a kid, I didn't have a Commissioner Gordon figure. So Bulletproof was the police commissioner because all my cops were the cops. And I think I had a couple from RoboCop. We had Ace Jackson and Wheels Wilson. Those names, man. But anyway, that was my police force growing up. So Bulletproof was the commissioner at the time. Essentially, he took that role. So there's that. And I actually have one last grouping before I close this out. It's been long enough. All right, so that's the last bunch of comparisons. These guys are relevant because when I was a little kid... Oh, and there's someone missing. I just can't believe I forgot that. I may as well even just remove one of the characters and put another one in there instead, but it's just weird. But when I was a kid, between my brother and I, these were the superheroes that we had for the majority of our childhood, like the early ages. I mean, there's a 6-year difference between him and I, but you know, in the early days, we only had a handful of heroes. Of course, I had Batman, of course, because shit, I always had Batman. And my brother had Cap, Superman, and the Flash. Later on, I ended up with Wolverine and Spider-Man. So I always had Spider-Man, Batman, Wolverine. And then, you know, I ended up with Iron Man years later because I started reading the Iron Man books. And yeah, nice colorful little team right there. Of course, Batman wouldn't have been this old. It would have been more like this. Same goes for Soups. He wouldn't have been that old either. But you get the idea. But just to reimagine shit I already did. And this Iron Man is so short it bothers me. He's too short. He should be bigger than everybody here. Taller than everyone ever here. But anyway, just reimagining things, you know. That makes me happy. But, you know, there's this review here. So that's been my look at the Supreme Knight. Good Lord, how am I forgetting this? It's late. Maybe that's what it is. And I love this figure. It's a really well done figure. His articulation is great. I don't have any limitations. That's why I didn't really focus on that. I figured posing him at the end would give you an idea of what he can do. The look, the quality of the, of course, somebody had to fall, you know. The look and the quality of the materials used is super on point. I mean, no issues, nothing to ask for, nothing to improve other than my quibble with the magnet. I don't like magnets on my action figures. I just don't. I don't know if it's you know, I mean, I've explained why, but I just don't like it. One of those things I wish they would just do away with and never go back to it. It always cheapens the figure for me. But yeah, that is pretty much my story, and I am sticking to it. Hopefully sooner than later we will be talking about Batman 89 when the Mezco Batman 89 comes out. They still haven't given us any notifications to let us know when that figure's coming out, so your guess is as good as mine. But so yeah, I got plenty of Batman stuff to talk about. So I am not really pressed when it comes for Batman stuff. I just would like to know when I'm going to get my Batman 89 figure, because I've been waiting for a grip for that figure. And I want to hurry up, get this paid and taken care of, and see if it was worth all the hubbub and whatnot. But for now, I do have this figure and many others, and I'm very happy with it. It's a very dope figure. And I'm kind of just looking forward to the day when I'm done collecting Batman figures, to be honest. I want to focus on other characters, you know, and I'm kind of there. Batman 89 will be the last, you know, for real. But anyway, that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And yeah, I will see you on the next video. Peace outside.